2019 is coming to an end, but before that happens, we're going to take a look at Sony, see their highs and lows, discuss them, what went well, what didn't. They had a pretty interesting year, I'd say, right? They didn't show up to E3. They started their state of play things. A lot of people left. A lot of higher-ups left. And their exclusives, while I wouldn't say they were weak, they weren't as strong as previous years, I'd say.
Yeah, you can't come out with the big guns every year.
That's true, and it seems like they're gearing up for PlayStation 5, which we got some info on that as well. But before we get into that, Michael, highs and lows.
Ooh, highs for me on PlayStation 4's front. I would say, well, a personal favorite of mine was Judgment. I think that's a PS4 exclusive, and that's out of RGG Studios, known for the Yakuza series. And Yakuza has traditionally been a Sony or PlayStation franchise. They've branched off, but Judgment is a PS4 exclusive, and it's one of my standouts for the year. That was great. And also, I like Death Stranding a lot. I know it's a divisive game, and there are good reasons for why certain people don't like it. There are things to pick out of that game that maybe fall short of some expectations, but overall, I think that's a very bold game as a whole. I think it's giving Kojima Productions the opportunity to do something that's genuinely different, and as a PS4 exclusive, I think it's something that's special. And of course, it's not going to hit for everyone, but it's definitely a standout regardless.
It's very different than anything we've seen, even when you look back at Sony's
repertoire.
Repertoire. It's very different. Peter, how about you? Highs and lows?
The highs is Death Stranding, and you guys said it all, so I'm not going to waste any time. The lows, though, honestly, I would say, generally speaking, it was a very boring year to be a PlayStation owner. I didn't find a whole lot of reason to have faith in what I couldn't even say like what their plans are for the future or what I had to look forward to. Days Gone was just a really strange release, and I still love my PlayStation and use it way more than my Xbox, but 2019 was kind of a dud for me if I'm looking at Sony.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I would kind of say the same as much as I liked Death Stranding, but there is a lot going into the future, right? Because they did very casually just like, here's what's inside the PS5. It's got ray tracing, it can do this, and it was just kind of out of nowhere.
Sure.
There's a Wired article?
Yes, it came out as an exclusive for Wired, so props to them. And Mark Cerny just basically laid out a bunch of detailed information. And for us, like Peter and I are kind of, I guess, tech experts, so we love that stuff. And to hear about how PS5 is going to reduce load times to like less than a second, like I think Mark Cerny pointed out an example, like 15 seconds to load into a place in Spider-Man. Well, that's like 0.8 seconds on the PS5. And that's because of, different hardware, solid state drives, which has been a thing that's exclusive to PCs, are now going to be part of the PS5, and that's a huge advantage.
I mean, we've been able to like put them in PlayStations, but Sony hasn't done anything to itself take advantage of them for us, right? To make that a part of the ecosystem. And looking ahead, like, I don't know that I need stunning graphics, like beyond adding ray tracing. Like, I think I'm pretty happy with the state of game graphics today. So it's going to be these things that make the experience of gaming feel more modern and more seamless that are really going to be awesome.
Yeah, and to just casually come out for an article to lay out some of those details, I think that's also a bold move in a way. Like they don't have PSX anymore. They stopped that last year and didn't come back this year with that. So it's like this is the information that we're going to dole out for this year to let you all know that next year it's going to be huge for PS5. So that was a surprising move this year for Sony.
Yeah, I mean, and you talked about no PSX, no E3 this year either, which was a strange but maybe not a super surprising move, considering that it seems like they didn't have a whole lot they were ready to show. Or
they said, we've shown you guys stuff, the same things a couple years in a row now. We don't want to do it again. We don't see the point in doing it again.
Yeah, I mean, because what's left, right? That the big thing we know is Last of Us Part 2.
Right. And then you have, what is it?
Ghost of Tsushima.
Ghost of Tsushima as well.
Yeah.
And then it'll be on to the PS5, right?
Yeah, so there wasn't really there wasn't anything necessary for like PSX and even to be at E3. And they did relegate Last of Us Part 2 revealing to a private event. And I guess like they can call their own shots. That's what it says to me, that when Sony pulls out of E3 and they have their marquee games to their own private events, it shows that like, we At least what it communicates to me is that we can do these things on our own. We don't need to be part of the grander stage, because then they'll create their own.
Yeah, but how about those state of plays? The kind of things that have taken the place.
Yeah, rough start. I think that first one was entirely VR focused, or at least close to it, and it was like, I don't know. But, they at least have some ammunition to work with, and I think they proved that when they talked a lot about Final Fantasy VII. I think there was one a month or two ago where we just got a ton of new info on that game. So it's been interesting to see them go about that and improve upon it. I kind of prefer it. Like, I think we all have some romanticism around E3, right, and what that represents. But I also like the idea of every month or so getting hype about, hey, here's some announcements coming. I think Nintendo has proven to be better at making those moments feel like they are paying off. If Sony can figure that out, that'd be really good for them, honestly, because it pays to know that you can sort of have that engagement with a brand or a platform that you're engaging with, right? Like on a regular basis.
Sure. And like the other major platforms have that. Like you mentioned, Nintendo Direct.
You got Nelson doing his thing.
Yeah, inside Xbox. And now there's Sony State of Play. They started that this year, and it kind of shows that these platform holders kind of, with the advent of the ease of streaming and doling out that information, like not every State of Play or Direct is going to be this major thing. It is a way to get out the word for smaller announcements, maybe, which we saw with the early State of Plays. But
like Concrete Genie is an example of that, which is a game that seemed to review pretty well.
Yeah.
Which I think that's like a good announcement for something like that.
Yeah, it kind of, in a way, I see State of Play and Direct, these streaming information, these information streams, as kind of leveling the playing field between the big AAA games and some of those maybe smaller dev teams and the games that they're making for the platform. So relegating all of that to State of Play is kind of gives everyone an even playing field. And it's nice to see smaller games get that sort of recognition or platform to say, hey, we're out here, we're coming out soon.
So I guess to look ahead then a little bit, if this year was a little bit slow, next year's supposed to be the PS5. Are you guys thinking that next year could be a very big year in terms of exclusives, maybe launch titles?
Well, if you look at the PS4 launch, it was pretty disappointing. I think the best game on there was Resogun, which, hey, nothing against Resogun. That's a great game, but there was a lot of stuff that just felt like maybe Sony got their console out too soon. I don't know. I never want to, whatever. But yeah, it wasn't exciting.
Yeah.
And we don't know a ton about what's on the way for PS5, even when it's coming out. State of Play would be a great opportunity for Sony to say, like, this console's coming and these are the games you're going to get. But, we've been burned by knack before. Could another thing like that happen again? Certainly. I mean, who knows? But a new console is always exciting.
I think the kicker is that by all accounts, the PS5 is going to be backwards compatible.
Yeah. The first time in a while, right?
Yeah. Then like the PS4 didn't have that with PS3 games, so there was a gap there.
And now the PS3 kind of did early on, but they eventually
like different models could do it. So having the PS5 come out and say, okay, we have, because next year they're going to come out with Last of Us Part 2, and if people aren't able to play on PS5, like that would kind of be disappointing. But we know that the PS5 is going to be back compat, and that's very important for so many high-profile games that are going to come out soon or that are already out. So that kind of props up the PS5 as, hey, you can still get some of the benefits of this hardware while playing all of those games that are just had recently come out.
Yeah, I think for both console manufacturers who are heading into a new generation, it's like the second generation of this x86 console existence. And as we see in the PC space, you just upgrade hardware. The old games still work, and you can make them look better because you can tap into new settings. There's been no word of this, but I'm really curious if games are just going to be automatically able to play on PS5, and automatically it's just like changing graphics card settings, right, to make that game look better.
Yeah.
Who knows? But I'd love to see that. And before we leave the backwards compatibility part of it, that is a huge part of PlayStation Now. And we know Sony is making a big deal about cloud streaming going ahead. They cut the price of PlayStation Now in half this year, which is significant. It still doesn't perform, I think, in the way that people, or at least that game streaming is marketed to us as, but they're making moves, certainly. And that's going to mean probably being able to play PS3 or whatever, PS2 games even, like on your PS5.
Yeah, PlayStation Now has made strides.
Yeah.
Because I remember back when I was looking into it, to play PS3 games. Like, oh, okay, yeah, PS Now is the way to do it if I want to do that on my PS4. But now it's come closer to kind of what, Xbox Game Pass and xCloud is trying to do.
There's a ton of games. Like, I think there are like a few hundred games.
Yeah.
And you can even play them on your PC. Like, I have a PlayStation Now client on my PC where I can play that stuff.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of, does it work well enough for me to want to do that versus play the actual thing?
Yeah,
I'm not
sure.
quite there yet.
Sure.
But
And
to have the option is cool.
yeah, and they have to make improvements on that end, and Sony's showing that they do care about that sort of thing. Even like the big story about how Sony's teaming up with Microsoft to kind of shore up their cloud technology for gaming, and in the wake of Google Stadia, it kind of shows that Sony looks at Microsoft like, hey, we need to kind of cover our own ground, because a lot of the games that come out on PS4 and Xbox are third-party games that are multi-platform. So
I mean, you can't have game streaming as a service unless you have the dedicated servers to do it. So I think for Sony, they're looking at two options there. It's either they team up with Amazon or they team up with Microsoft. Not surprising to me that they wouldn't go out of the gaming space and team up with a behemoth like Amazon. So, hey, yeah, why not just rent Microsoft's blades if that's what they're really doing? It could be that simple.
Yeah. So overall, I think PS Now it may have been kind of under the radar, but in 2019, PS Now has changed drastically.
Yeah. So big picture, overall, what do you think? How was Sony in 2019?
It was all right. There are things that I still care about that showed up on the PS4. Like I mentioned, Judgment and Death Stranding, and I think I'm interested in cloud gaming as a whole, just to see where it goes, and to see Sony make those strides in PS Now it's kind of an exciting prospect. So those are some of the things. I mean, like I said, you're not gonna have the big blockbusters in 2019, but that's all right. So I think it was pretty all right.
Peter, how about you?
In my mind, I think the only thing saving 2019 from being a less than good year for Sony was Death Stranding. I think that was a really exciting game, and really does bring to light how important exclusives can be for a company, and for people who only have one console, right? To make it feel like they made the right choice. I don't know how to put that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. I agree, and I think we saw this with Xbox too when we were talking before. It seems like this is very much a transition year, or it's getting close to a transition year, where these first-party publishers and developers are kind of slowing down, maybe saving what they're working on for what's to come in the future.
Of course.
Which is exciting for the future, but it doesn't help this year a whole lot.
Right.
Anyways, that's how Sony was in 2019. Make sure to stay tuned, because we have plenty of Game of the Year coverage coming your way.